Sveiki vėl iš mūsų nuostabios laukų kontoros. Dabar pas mus svečiuose Ormes, tai yra jaunuolis iš Anglijos ir Lietuvoje jis dairosi žemių, nes nori čia ekologiškai ūkininkauti. Adamas sako, kad Lietuvoje yra daug vandens ir palyginti su Anglija labai švarios žemės, galima rasti tiksliau švarių žemių. So, Adam, tell everything about England, why problems and so on.
Well, actually first I will say in England we have the highest concentration of land ownership in Europe. What this means is the smallest number of people own the largest percentage of land. So already for young farmers the prices for land are astronomical, and it also has had a big influence on the way that the farmers work. So, you know, very large farms, and then they are being very industrial in their methods. And well, we have had some scientific studies recently saying that in 30 or 40 years all of the soils will be destroyed if we keep doing the same thing as currently now. So lots of groups have been trying to campaign about this, make it known to the public, to the media and so on. And it has been a very slow process, but in the last 2 years it is something that is being talked about on a high level. So for example, there was a conference which has been organized for maybe 6-7 years now, called the Oxford Real Farming Conference, and this happens in the same time and the same place, well, in the same town as the Oxford Farming Conference, which is the big industrial conference. So they decided to create this alternative, and it has grown hugely over the years. You know, and the whole idea is that this is for people who are trying to look after the soil and do things differently. And now it is almost more famous than the original one. And there's not enough space for everybody who wants to come. And from this, for example, last year, the environment minister from the government came to give a speech. Now, I don't trust everything this man says, of course, but it just shows that this has really become a big priority now. And also, the farmers are organizing themselves to educate themselves and to share information themselves. So there's now a group calling itself Groundswell. So Groundswell is where the ground rises up. And they have also been holding events where they give speeches and share their knowledge and experience. And, you know, the farmers are listening. The farmers are starting to know that the method of nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium and Roundup is destroying their soils. I mean, they are forced to do something because they have problems with this plant, black grass, it's called, Pellinis.
Black grass, Pellinis pašaušėlis.
Or in Latin it's called Alopecums myosuroides. And this plant is growing in the wheat fields, in the grain fields, and it does not get killed by Roundup anymore.
So what to do?
It's like antibiotic resistance, and farmers are starting to think more about the soil biology now. Many farmers were only taught that you need to have this NPK and the plants will grow. This is chemistry. This is Justus von Liebig theory, and actually it's not true.
So we can think that nature is creating something to help for herself, just creating plants who can live in these conditions.
Yeah, maybe this is nature's strategy to stop our crazy farming system. For sure. And so now this biological paradigm way of thinking is becoming more and more accepted by people. And so, for example, compost, the importance of compost, the importance of soil ecology, and the healthy balance between, for example, the bacteria and the fungi. And the fungi are the most vulnerable organisms in the soil. Vulnerable means they are easily destroyed.
Fungus.
Fungus.
But we need very much them.
Yes. Yes. So compost, when you make good compost, and this means providing the right temperatures and the right environment for the fungi to grow. I mean, compost is a science, you know. Some people think you just throw everything
and you
get compost. Okay, well, it's better than nothing, but if you want to make really good compost, then you need to learn what is important, what proportion of carbon to nitrogen, and what temperatures, and also in the biodynamic system you use preparations to help the process work better. But for example, many large farms are using something called compost tea. So when they have the compost, this is not tea for drinking, this is tea for the soil.
Yes, of course.
And the idea is you add compost to water and you put oxygen into the water. And then you add some food, and then the organisms which are in the compost will increase, they will multiply. And then something which farmers already know how to do, they have a big tank on the back of their tractor and the sprayer, and then they go to their field and they put these organisms into the soil. The most important thing to know about soil biology is the humus in the soil, which creates our beautiful black fertile soil. The majority of this humus, it does not come from when the plant dies and turns into humus. No, it comes from the roots of the plants. When the sun goes onto the leaves, they produce sugar, photosynthesis, and then in some cases with trees, for example, 80% of this sugar they create, they give away to the soil. This then feeds the soil, and the organisms in the soil can digest the minerals and other nutrients, which then they give back to the plants. So there is this complex symbiosis of biology and in the soil and plants. And then humans come and they think, okay, we will give the plants what they need, NPK, but NPK is salt.
Yes.
So you put salt on bacteria and fungi, and what happens?
And you kill them.
They are dehydrated and they die. So then you start to have problems because the balance of the bacteria and the fungi is destroyed. The bacteria, they can multiply like this. The fungi are very slow. So you get too much bacteria. The bacteria take over, and then all of these weeds, they like the conditions where it's high bacteria and low fungi. There's a lot of nitrate in the soil, and so you can see that the conditions that humans create through their agricultural methods are encouraging these weeds. And so, you know, you have to take one step backwards and think, okay, how can we do this differently? So there is a movement called conservation agriculture, which was first, I think, very popular in France and Italy, but now it's spreading very fast. And farmers are trying to maintain a cover on the soil as long as possible. So, for example, you have, I'm sure also in Lithuania, a history to use plants which you sow just for the soil.
Yes, of course.
Yes. So then
Įsideratiniai augalai.
there are methods where you can grow these together with your crops. So, you know, when they harvest, for example, the rye,
Yeah. Rugiai.
what's it, ruketis?
Rugiai.
The harvest in August, let's say, yes? Then the soil is bare. In the traditional method, the soil has no covering, and the sun is very hot,
Yes.
and then the soil is just being cooked.
Yeah.
And there is all this energy coming from the sun, which is not being used by any plants. So the art is when you cut the rye, already you have underneath
Something.
another plant, which is
Yeah.
then ready to go.
It's a really good idea.
And already this plant then is creating fertility in the soil.
And feeding soil.
So this is a basic thing, and then more advanced, you know, they are using mixtures of plants,
Yeah.
not just rye, for example, or not just wheat, but actually all of these different plants provide, well, they have roots at different depths, and they produce different substances. In nature, you never have just one plant. They
No.
are all helping each other.
Yes.
And so, you know, they might be growing 5 different crops, and then lots of other plants to support this. And then the combine can actually separate these different seeds because they have different weights.
Yes.
And again, the productivity is much, much higher. Another thing is to put trees in the fields. So you find the right space for the combine and the machine, and then, you know, you have lines of trees, because the trees, they also produce from their roots many substances which help the soil. And of course you can grow, for example, walnut trees, which will give you a lot of money later. And actually there have been studies, and they show that the yield, the productivity is higher when you have trees.
Yeah.
It's called the edge effect. Like on the edge of
Yes.
fields, the productivity is higher, and it's
Yes.
because of this interaction. So farmers might think there will be less productivity. I mean, they must learn how to manage this and like cut the roots. There's a machine to cut the roots and so on. But this is another technique.
Yeah. Wow. So that shows that we have to learn to do everything from start. Yes.
Well, I don't know if it's from start. I think, you know, this chemical agriculture has destroyed the old knowledge which people had from many generations of observing nature, and I think maybe it still exists, you know, here. I don't know. I'm sure in some places it still exists. But, you know, when you have these chemical corporations sending their agricultural agronomists to all the farms, and they are just actually selling for these companies.
And rules for banks who are giving money for farmers. We include that you need to use glyphosate, for example. Yes, I know that. And tell about this main thing, fulvic acid. Tell about this.
Okay, so fulvic acid is one of the complex carbon molecules which is created when you make good compost. Humic acid is the other one. So we call it humus, but there are also these fulvate complex carbon chains. And people have been using this fulvic acid as medicine to take for
Yes.
people also. But what's very special about it is that it will break down the glyphosate, which stays in the soil. You know, it's very persistent, and people obviously now, we all have it in our bodies because
Yes.
there have been many studies and it's shown it's everywhere. So we need to know what to do about this, and fulvic acid is the magic bullet, it seems. So everyone should be making compost as much as possible, and then compost tea is even better.
To spray compost tea maybe everywhere, just even in forest.
I mean, the forests maybe are you know,
Near these big farms.
yeah, where the damage is worse, we need to do the most. Another thing is the biodynamic preparations. Biodynamics is a method from Rudolf Steiner, and it's quite famous now with wine growers, because in vineyards they often have terrible soil.
Yes.
Because they've been using these chemical methods, and then the quality of the wine has been going down. And they found that using this biodynamic preparation, where you take a cow horn and you put cow manure, and then you bury it in the soil for 6 months, from autumn to spring, then you take it out, then you put it in water and you mix, making a vortex. And you do this for 1 hour, one direction, then the other direction, and then you spray on your land. So on one level, on the most simple level, it's actually like a very simple, primitive version of compost tea, because in compost tea you use a machine to put oxygen, but when you stir like this, you also put oxygen. But for the preparations, you just need a small amount. So the idea with this is it's working on a homeopathic level for the soil. It's providing the information for this fungal life,
What to do? What you have to do
to be able to then start to return. So there are many methods, and you don't need to have much technology. This biodynamic method is the most simple.
Yes. I see.
And you can also actually buy, if you want to really put lots of fulvic acid, you can buy fulvic acid. It's also possible.
Yes, I know.
So yeah, this should be known, but obviously the media will probably not talk about it.
We are media. Today we are media.
Yes, okay.
Thank you so much. You told us very important things.
Can I say two more things?
Yes, of course.
Okay. The other important development is people have been seeing how quickly the soil can be healed if animals are kept in an intelligent way on the soil.
How?
Okay, so for example, we have in Eastern Europe this Chornoziem, the dark soils in Ukraine and Russia, the steppes, in America the prairie. These soils were created because there were large groups of wild cows in these areas. Okay, so the grasses, the plant family of grasses, are the ones which grow the fastest. They have the most efficient photosynthesis. Okay, so when a plant grows, it has like a growth curve. So when it starts to grow in the spring, it's still cold and it doesn't grow so fast. Then, March, April, and then it slows down again because it's too hot, there's not enough water, and so on. It's the same when it's growing, how much of this sugars it's putting into the soil. So if you have grass with cows, you have to leave it till here until the cows go in and start to eat it.
Yes.
Then you can maximize the fertility.
Yes.
If the grass is only small and then the cows eat it, it's never going to be able to do what it can do if it goes to here.
Yeah.
So you must manage the animals intelligently. You use usually electric fences, in places where they have people and shepherds, of course, they use shepherds.
About what animals? Just about cows or maybe about horses?
Especially cows, also sheep, also goats, the animals that eat grass. We have problems because everybody is eating far too much of the animals which eat grains, chickens and pigs, because they eat the same foods as we can eat. Cows, sheep, goats, they eat things which humans cannot eat, and there is much land where we cannot grow plants for humans.
Yes.
So we need to understand the difference, because there's a lot of very reductionistic rhetoric on this subject, and I understand people might have their own personal reasons for not wanting to consume these products, but we also need to understand that in nature these animals will always...
animals. We for example, maybe some people who don't want to eat meat, we just can keep animals just for better to make better soils. Yeah.
Well, if you have sheep, they will cut your grass for you.
Yes, of course.
And you can make clothes from them.
You keep for electricity. So thank you very much. It was very nice to talk with you about everything. Taigi, man buvo labai įdomu išgirsti tai, ką pasakojo Adamas, ir tiesiog štai kitų šalių pavyzdys, tų šalių, kurios atseit nuėjo toliau, tiesiog parodo, kad jos į gilesnę duobę įkrito. Mes dar ne tokia gilioje duobėje. Tai kągi, iki kito interviu.